Will Duke end up being the number one top seed? I think the answer is yes. They beat Michigan. It just so happened that they were in the schedule to play this year, and respectively number one and number two. And Duke took that win. So if you have Duke and Michigan for sure getting the number ones, because Duke's going to win the ACC, Michigan is going to win the Big Ten. We're talking regular season here. And then Arizona and UConn. So you have the Big 12 and the Big East. So ACC, Big 10, Big 12, Big East. Those are my top. And obviously, you know, those regions. So Duke, because of what I just said, Duke's going to get the East. Michigan's going to take care of the Midwest. And then Arizona's going to be on the West side region, and UConn will be in the South. Even though UConn and Duke are really close to each other on the map, they're going to send UConn to the South. I think you could put, you know, UConn at number one as well. But they do have 3 losses overall, I think. So that's where they go. They get the sham there. You know, Arizona, let's talk about Arizona for a second. And the Big 12 is nasty. I mean, yeah, year in, year out, Arizona, they're taking down the West region. They did have a couple back-to-back losses mid-season, but you know, their domination over Houston and Baylor. Look, they won those games on the road. So yeah, Pete and I mean, those guys are just great. So their game versus Kansas is going to be huge. They're definitely, I mean, I'm putting them as Big 12 champions, although Iowa State's right behind them. Then you get in the Big East, you have UConn. What's the deal with UConn? Why are they so good? Well, just perennially, they're a great team. They probably have top 5. A lot of people would put their coach as the number 1. But just the other day, they beat St. John's by 32. I mean, what's to make of these games that are such an anomaly like that? You know, Red Storm go into that game on a 13-game winning streak, which is massive if you're in the Big East. However, I mean, they got slaughtered by the Huskies. So you got to say UConn's the best team, regardless of what's on paper. You know, the eye test, right? St. John's is great, but UConn is, you know, they're the cream of the crop. Now, let's talk about the Big Ten, because there's a really big battle in the Big Ten right now for second place. This will make a difference. You know, predictions are just predictions, but you have Michigan State, Nebraska, Purdue, and Illinois, and now you have to throw Wisconsin in there. Wisconsin's the only team that beat Michigan this year in the conference. And they're at 19 wins. UCLA's at 19 wins. Iowa's at 19 wins. Indiana, unfortunately, they just got beat. They lost at home to Northwestern, who is currently on a conference win streak. But Northwestern is. But Indiana, you know, they'll probably make it, assuming they don't lose their first game and they win the last few games they had left. That's kind of crazy. So, but let's talk about, let's get back to the seeding. I think you have, Duke, Michigan, Arizona, UConn. And all 4 of them are going to be the champions, a regular season champion. Now, number 2 seeds, I'm going to go with Iowa State. I think they get a 2 seed. I think Florida is placed as a 2 seed. And then Houston and Kansas. I think that's how the 2 seed is going to be. you have to put Florida and Iowa State in there. You have to put Houston in there, right? Because if you really compare them to the teams I'm about to mention, you'll say, all right, I get it. Number 3 seeds, I'm going to go with Illinois, Purdue, and Gonzaga. Michigan State also as the number 3 seed. Michigan State's likely going to, take second place if Nebraska doesn't take it. So the number 2 Big Ten team gets in at a number 3 seed. Now, if Michigan State goes on to win the Big Ten tournament, or Nebraska goes on to win the Big Ten tournament, these things can change. But right now, as it sits, I'm putting Michigan State and Illinois in the number 3 seed. Illinois, they just have a top offense. I think for a while they have had the top offense in the nation. And they've played really well against the other teams. And, no one has beat them so hands down that you have to question anything they're doing. So Big Ten, getting it done with, Michigan State, Purdue, Illinois, all up in the 3 seed. Maybe one of them could be in the 2 seed, but as of right now, I think that's how it's going to be. And then to continue on, you've got Nebraska, Virginia, Alabama, and Texas Tech sitting at the number 4 seeds. For sure, you can put Nebraska in the top 4. They just played USC today, and like a lot of teams, the first half is like questionable. Nebraska was down at USC in the first half, but they did pull a player, one of their starters, because he had 2 early fouls, put him in the second half, and immediately Nebraska just dominated. I think they scored something like 30 points to their 12 with 6 minutes left or 8 minutes left. Something disgusting. So that's your 4 seeds. Arkansas at 5. Vanderbilt will be a 5 seed. I'm going to throw St. John's up here in this 5 seed. And I'm going to put North Carolina, UNC. So I've mentioned before that North Carolina, about a little over a month ago, really needed to put the gas pedal to the floor because they were looking like they could be a mid-tier team. But that program, as per the usual, they did turn it around. So putting them in at number 5. 6 seeds. This is a really interesting thing. I contemplated for a little bit where to put BYU. I wanted to put BYU a pretty high seed, but I didn't want to put them in the top 4. And then I was like, well, Arkansas probably beat BYU. Vanderbilt probably beat. So I put them at 6. So I've got BYU, Tennessee, Louisville, and Villanova. Yeah, I'm throwing Villanova in there at number 6 seed. Number 7 seeds coming in, we have UCF, Kentucky. I got to put St. Mary's in there. And then check this out. I'm throwing St. Louis. in there. In the Atlantic 10 Conference, you have 2 teams that are really good. Well, 3 teams, but 2 teams that will probably make the tournament. VCU and the St. Louis, the Billikens. They've remained in the top 25. They lost to Stanford barely, and then they lost to Rhode Island, which was not good, and then they lost to Dayton. So still, at 25-3 overall, I'm going to put them in a number 7, because if you put them against, I'd say like a Clemson or Texas, I'm picking St. Louis to win that game, to be honest. The Atlantic 10, is not a powerful conference overall, but St. Louis, they've got some great players and some veterans who have experienced the postseason before in high pressure situations. Number 8 seed, with the Mountain West champion, I'm going with Utah State. Got to put them in somewhere good. If you win that conference, you're all right. But I put them about as good as Wisconsin, who is my another 8 seed. And then I'm going to put Miami of Ohio winning the MAC. Had they went completely undefeated so far, I'd probably have them up way higher than an 8 seed. But truth is, if they're losing a game or two in that conference, you can't put them that high. Miami of Florida, they're amazing. Obviously, Miami, they're getting in too. So I'm going to put double Miami in at number 8 seeds. Number 9 seeds, assuming Iowa makes the tournament, I don't think they're going to lose out. So Iowa, number 9, North Carolina State gets in there as well. Throwing the SEC a bone here, putting the Georgia Bulldogs in at number 9 seed, and also SMU. UCLA, Missouri, Clemson, and Texas A&M are my 10 seed picks. They're my 10 seed picks. UCLA has really turned it on in the second half of Big Ten play, and props to them. I can say the same thing about Missouri and the SEC. Hey, some great wins. Great wins. I mean, here's one thing about Missouri. They're sitting at 20 wins and 10-6 in the SEC. They're tied with Kentucky. And they're literally just they're not tied with Tennessee because they have one more loss right now, but they could easily finish in 4th place. And who knows how far they're going to go in the SEC tournament. So Missouri playing some really, really good basketball. So hats off to them. And then Clemson and A&M, they're doing great too. Texas, Cal, TCU, and I'm assuming Indiana is going to make, right? So there's a couple question marks, but those are going to be your bigger conference at-large bids. And again, one of the things that matters in making the tournament is you've got to be really, really good in the net rankings. You have to have a good net. Quad 1 wins, right? No quad 3 losses, no quad 2 losses. Or if you do, you better be a really good quad 2 team. And because after the number 11 seed, you pretty much just fill in the seeds with the smaller conference, the mid-major champions. I mean, honestly, there isn't much room for at-large bids once you get past 11th seed. So then you're going to have, let's just list the mid-major champions. I'm going to go with Belmont, South Florida. I'm putting South Florida in there at number 12. I'm going to throw Yale, and I'm going to throw Liberty in there too at number 12 seeds. So with Liberty being a Conference USA champion, you could probably say, maybe why not 13? It is what it is. Missouri, I'm just going based off of conferences here because I see Belmont winning the Missouri Valley Championship regular season. American Conference, great conference. South Florida with signature win. Yale, they're pretty good. Liberty. Now we're going to go Southland champion. That's Stephen F. Austin. UNC Wilmington with the CAA champ, the Big South champ being High Point. They're going to get in as a number 13. And Utah Valley, they win the WAC. And then number 14, we're going to go with the Big West, Hawaii. Atlantic Sun, Austin P. How about that? Little school down there. Well, it's not so little, but Clarksville, Tennessee, Austin P. State University. Be a big, big, big deal for them. North Dakota State, Summit, And then the Patriot, Navy. We see Navy in the tourney. That's going to be great. I'm just going to call it. They're going to make it. Sunbelt champion, Troy. Big Sky, Portland State. Southern champion, we're going to go East Tennessee State and say Wright State will win the Horizon. Merrimack, probably be the MAC. LIU, take Northeast champion. UMBC, America East, and then the ever terrible SWAC conference in Division I, and that's Bethune-Cookman. But check it out. If you win those conferences, you make the dance. That's the plus side to going to a mid-major school. If your team wins, right, you say, well, there are so many better teams other than East Tennessee State, Troy, North Dakota State, Stephen F. Austin, which, by the way, they did great in football this year, too, in their FCS bid. But anyway, we're going to go with those teams. And, you talk about whoever's 65, 66, 67, 68. I mean, Morehead State's probably going to be, and Morgan State probably going to be the last two auto qualifiers, right? So they're going to probably be in play-in games. And then, I can't predict. There's so many options for who's about to drop out of those slots or who could be a surprise team that goes deep in their conference tournament that surprises everybody, that maybe they have 20 wins who knows? But you got to get those other two, Morgan State, Morehead State, you got to get them in there. So let's just talk about the regions, okay? So I've got, Washington, D.C. That's where Duke's going to be. That's going to be a great one. Chicago is where Michigan is most likely going to be. But, they're playing. It's in the United Center, same place as the Big Ten tournament. I think that's kind of an unfair advantage when you've got Michigan, who just a week prior or a couple days prior, if they, go to the championship game, they'll have a triple bye in the Big Ten tournament. That would be like a home court because really it's just a few hours away from Ann Arbor. So yeah, they would have a huge showing there. Same way with like Houston. Houston, if they get in at number 2, they'd probably be placed in there. So that's home court advantage for them, home field advantage, home crowd advantage. West region, that's in San Jose. So, I mean, Arizona, not really home field advantage for them, but I'd say Arizona probably gets the worst when it comes to that. Hey, Washington, D.C. is not that far from North Carolina where Duke's at. So, yeah. So looking at the last 4 in and the first 4 out, just to wrap up the seeding, I'm going to say that VCU should make it. I really believe VCU, I think they make it. I think they'd be one of those last 4 in teams. Will Indiana beat Purdue? I'm sorry. Will Indiana make it with their wins over Purdue and Ohio State? But they have some losses. Now, thankfully, their loss to Northwestern at home is a quad 1 loss. But I don't know. That's a tough one for me. I'm going to say Virginia Tech and USC are easily my first 4, a part of my first 4 out. I would even throw Ohio State in there, depending on how they do this last week of conference play. But, overall, this is a really top heavy field. I mean, historically speaking, we're seeing a year where the big name teams are in the tournament. Kentucky's going to make it. Kansas is going to make it. Arizona's in. Houston has become a household name in regards to Big 12 basketball. But there's teams like Miami of Ohio who are making it, and they're going to get in with just a couple of losses under their belt. High-powered mid-major team. That's interesting. So they're not an annual contender for the dance, let alone going far. How far do you put them in? I don't know. At this point, I don't know. I guess it really depends on how their field looks like. How many teams are they going to have to face, that are going to give them trouble based on their look, based on their setup, what kind of offense they run. Really, Miami of Ohio reminds me a lot of Nebraska in the Big Ten. They're just very deep when it comes to who they can match up against, even though they don't have perfect matches at the 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. They seem to match well, even though on paper it might not look like it. But it is madness, and it is crazy, and you have a 1 in 1 billion chance of making a perfect bracket. So can't wait for that to come out and see how these predictions match up. But I think this is a pretty solid. If you look at the other individuals that predict, I mean, it's pretty close. It's pretty close. There are some differences, but it's pretty close as of today. Today is the very last day in February. So in a week, we'll take a look at it again and see how it looks.